Welcome back to Call to the Table, a podcast where we literally sit around and lip sync for the first 10 minutes before we even record. I'm Olivia, and I'm the reason we were lip syncing and started late.
I'm John. I'm the person that didn't know who they were talking about.
I'm Jordan. I'm the one who was recording Liv lip syncing to the music that she was playing.
And it's too early for this. Okay.
Who are you?
Nobody knows who I am. I exist outside of time and space. My name's Caroline, but whatever. Okay.
I mean, at this point, I think they know who we are. But also, yeah, John, you didn't know any of the songs or any of the people.
He knew one.
He knew Cyndi Lauper's song, which was good. I was proud of you for knowing Cyndi Lauper. But you didn't know who Cyndi Lauper was.
He doesn't know who a lot of people are.
A lot of people are.
It was depressing.
Actors, actresses, singers. Yeah, no.
I'm not good with actors or
He's
actresses.
getting better. It's okay.
My fiance's really good. He'll be like, so-and-so, and I'm like, who did they play?
I know their I know characters better than
really
actors.
well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, they were so-and-so in this movie. Oh, yeah, I love that actress. You don't know their name. I know.
All right, so today we are talking about having faith like a child. And the first question I want to pose is, why is faith an essential part of being a Christian? Liv.
Well.
In her opinion.
I mean, it's also like, it's like saying you had this thought out, and now it's gone because I was seeing Cyndi Lauper. It's like having it. Let me just refer back to the lip syncing. It's like having music without instruments, like singing without background music. You can't really have faith. You can't really be a Christian and not have faith, because we don't have a tangible, aside from the Bible, we don't really have tangible proof in front of us at all times that Christ is there, that the Holy Spirit is there. We just have to have faith that the Holy Spirit is with us throughout the day, because we don't get to see it.
And some of the artifacts are kind of give and take as well. So,
right.
You know.
Yeah. Like, I can sit there and say, yeah, they found seashells on top of a mountain from Noah's Ark all day long, but have I been on top of the mountain and see them? No, I have to have faith that they're
Or palm trees underneath the ice caps in Antarctica.
Yeah. The stutter is real today.
I know it is.
All right, Johnny G, what do you think?
Faith is like you said, is the most essential part, because you have to be able to believe it and have the faith that's right. It's also very important because I believe it is the essential part of growth with a Christian, of turning our fleshly selves into a spiritual self as you progress along your walk with God.
Yeah.
I put, I reference Hebrews 11:6. Now you got me stuttering, Liv.
I'm sorry.
It's contagious today.
It is. I
I'm
reference
also wired.
Hebrews.
Clearly.
I only had one cup of coffee.
And a lot of sugar.
A lot of sugar. And you got Chick-fil-A.
It's water. It's water.
Oh,
it's water. It's water.
Sugar water.
No, it's just water.
I referenced Hebrews 11:6, which said, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." And to keep it in context, because I know Liv's big thing is what's before and what's after, this whole section of Hebrews talks about faith, like, specifically, and why it's part of being a Christian. The big thing is if we don't have faith, God's not happy. We a lot of times forget, we sit there and say that to be a Christian you have to believe in God, and we confuse belief and faith. Satan believes in God.
Yeah.
Satan was there when the crucifixion happened.
Satan was literally there for everything.
He was there for everything. He believes it. He just doesn't have the faith that going through God is the best option.
I wouldn't say belief is necessarily the right thing, because he witnessed it. It's not a belief. It's
he believes it.
No,
I believe
that's
it.
what I mean. There's a difference between believing something, just straight up believing it, but then having faith in the inherent goodness or the character of that person, which the devil clearly does.
I believe that Liv has a beanie on her head because I can see it. I don't necessarily.
I have to have faith that she has hair underneath.
Yeah,
well,
I can see that.
But I say you can see the hair protruding out, but that could all be part of the beanie.
Exactly.
I could be wearing a wig.
Da 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 da. Whee!
Eyeball.
So
well, I agree with you too. It's the seeing is believing.
Yeah.
believing is not seeing.
Yeah.
Plug that real fast.
And that point that
Maybe
I got.
you should switch to decaf.
No!
Decaf water.
Decaf is pointless.
I actually got the whole Satan believes in Jesus and doesn't have the faith from, I'm going to give a shout out. I've been listening to sermons on Apple Podcast by Rock Harbor Church. I have no idea where they are, but Sean Sears was the pastor that day, and he was the one that said that. So I'm going to give a shout out to him because I just totally stole his part of his sermon. So that's my thing.
It's not stealing, it's reiterating the obvious
For our mutual consideration.
I use that now with her too.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who are confused,
We're in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, thank you.
Harbor Church.
Rock Harbor Church in
Yeah.
Charlotte, North
I
Carolina.
thought you said we are in North Carolina, and I was like, did we
They also
did we
sorry.
teleport?
No. They're also in Orange County,
Scotty,
California.
beam us up.
They have 2 locations.
Oh, cool.
I have heard of that church before. I have
Yeah.
friends in North Carolina who've talked
Yeah.
about that church. I was
It's
like,
a
I know this one.
It's a
Hold on.
good, the pastors that I've been listening to so far, it's a series called Rooted, and it's being rooted in Christ, and so they've talked about, like, who is God and having faith and stuff like that. It's a really good series. I highly recommend it. So, yeah.
Just because I got cut off, what Jordan and I said and then slapped hands over is just a little inside joke from when we, like, first met, and it was something random that I said that Jordan really, really liked.
I did. So now every time we say something that's obvious, it's not thank you, Captain Obvious. It's
We're reiterating the obvious for our mutual consideration.
Lovely.
I know. All right, Caroline.
See.
Your opinion
Oh.
or your facts, because you have notes.
Did we say them?
I just said, without faith, it's very difficult to believe in someone that you can't see, just like we were talking about. You have to believe, have faith that God will do what he says he will do.
Mm.
So,
Yee. So when Jesus says to have faith like a child, specifically, what is the challenge to us? What is he specifically challenging us to do? Because it's one thing to sit there and say, I have faith, but why does he specifically reference having faith like a child? What's the difference?
Well, I mean, for me, having faith like a child is having the faith and not even questioning it. I mean, think about to like stuff that children typically believe in, especially around holidays. Just putting that out there.
okay.
Like Santa Claus,
I was about to
Easter
say,
Bunny.
we're a Christian podcast.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't say Santa Claus.
Well,
I grew up with the notion by my parents that Santa Claus and Jesus Christ were literally best friends.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me that they were, like, tight.
I was the one who believed that because I was the one who reasoned the whole thing out. They didn't tell me anything other than the fact that, you know, they weren't like, Santa's real. I was just an incredibly imaginative child who wanted desperately to believe in all of these things.
Yeah.
And so I remember vividly I was on the bus in the wee hours of the morning and it was 2nd grade and there was a jerky kid sitting next to me. And he's like, well, Santa's not real. And I said, well, yeah, he's real. Jesus loved him so much, and he was such a good person that he gave Santa immortality and a home in the North Pole and a place where he could give kids, you know, gifts. And then I went home later that day, and I was sitting on the toilet, and I yelled very loudly to my mother, Santa's not real, is he? And she said very quietly from the other room, no. And I said,
spoiler alert!
the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy aren't real either, are they? No.
Tooth Fairy's not real?
I know, it's so sad.
Who put money on my
Your namesake.
I did.
No! That's terrifying.
I was the smart kid that didn't ever believe in Santa.
See,
Sorry,
I
Well,
would
that's kind of how your parents did it.
My parents
I would've
put out
hated you.
Christmas presents
From
like,
Santa.
3 weeks ahead of time, and I was the one that sat there and was like, okay, gifts are supposed to get delivered from Santa on Christmas Eve. My gifts from Santa are here already, and when I would ask my
They
parents,
just need to say FedEx.
no, my parents would sit there and say, well, there were so many gifts this year, he had to deliver some early. I'm like, you are such a liar. You were wrapping them last night. This is our wrapping paper. Like, I was always the kid that never believed
My parents were really cool because they actually used my grandfather's World War II army sack and that was Santa's bag.
Oh, that's dope.
That is
I
dope.
know, right?
I walked out on my parents setting up presents.
Oh.
Hands down. Literally, like, half asleep. Walked out. Attic door is down. Stairs are leading to the attic. So I walk out. I'm like, okay. And I go back in the next one and, like, everything looks the same. Oh. Oops. Anyway. John, you had points. John? You were saying something.
I can't remember when that happened, yeah.
Well, we were talking about having faith like a child. And,
I know.
You
but
know.
You said you think about what kids believe.
I mean, any time when you believe it, did you have any question until there was an outside force that enacted upon it besides you? Because yes, Jordan, we know you. We know your situation.
Yeah.
Fair.
Special child.
But you wholeheartedly believe it, and you reason, like in Caroline, in your case, you reasoned it out to where it made sense.
That's because I wanted literally everything to be real. I wanted unicorns to be real. I wanted fantasy to be real.
Having faith like a child.
I'm pretty positive unicorns were real. They just didn't make it on the ark.
Well, we also... okay, that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah.
Continue, John.
Well, I mean,
I love cryptids. We'll talk about that later.
That's literally where I'm ending at, because having that wholehearted faith, not questioning it.
So here's what I believe about the Loch Ness Monster. Okay, John, go.
It's
Caroline's doing the interrupting today instead of Olivia.
Olivia, you need to step up your game.
I just planted the seeds. Which leads me to my points.
No, I need to get the seeds of Olivia out of my heart. No!
And it just comes bursting straight out.
Oh, great, Liv. It's like I'm an alien.
Where it's like,
it's just called Alien.
I hate alien movies.
I do too.
I'm so afraid of aliens.
Body horror sucks.
I don't believe in aliens, but they're scary.
And at the end of Spaceballs.
Oh, yeah. I love that movie.
Oh, no. Not again.
I love that movie.
Yes, Liv.
So, going back to when Jesus says have faith like a child.
Right.
If you correlate the times Christ talks about having faith like a child, he also then, in other translations and in other different verses, he talks about having faith as big as a mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a child has faith, like you were saying. A child can literally have faith in just about anything presented to them. You tell them, these vitamins are going to make you super duper strong. A child's going to believe that. They don't have to think, oh, they're lying to me. They literally have like this much faith and it's exploding because they're children. They don't know any better. God asks us to do that because he wants us, one, to continue our innocence in faith and continue to not doubt anything, not allow those outward forces to be like, oh yeah, but this isn't true. Oh yeah, but I can counteract this. Oh yeah, and block our faith. But he also sits there and says, you do not have to have more than a mustard seed's worth of faith. Have you guys ever seen a mustard seed?
Oh gosh, it's extremely small.
I have an old pen from my grandmother that has a mustard seed encased in like plastic.
Yeah.
And that was a pen. Yeah. They tiny boys.
It's so small. And I looked at it. It was the first time I saw a mustard seed. I looked at it and I have big hands, but I was like, God only asks that much of me.
The cool thing is, though, is that the mustard seed grows into a really honkin' big tree.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, like, a really cool, like...
analogy.
Yeah, because if we have faith like a child, which is that of a mustard seed, eventually our faith is going to grow to be this massive tree. But, like, it is tiny. Like, he doesn't ask us to... He doesn't even... In the Bible, he doesn't ask us to let our faith grow to the mustard tree. He just says, have this much faith. And I'm like, you're really not asking a whole lot of me, Lord.
He'll be the one to make it grow.
Exactly. I'm like,
but yeah,
this ain't a lot.
But we struggle so much with that.
With just that much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
I think it does. Because I was like, how can I answer this question? Because I do think about it. How do I answer this question not the same way? Because I had a feeling that we were going to probably all be on the same track with this one.
I did it from a sense of, because I work with littles. I work with,
that would have been a good angle to go to.
Littles. I looked at it from the sense of, when they come to me as their teacher, they have full faith that they're going to come to me. Oh gosh, you too.
He's touching me.
I know he is.
Speaking of little children.
I know.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
I raised two of them.
You raised two of them. I'd argue with you, but
She's right.
she's kind of right.
I know.
But we're just big kids.
We're
You
just
are.
rich kids.
But no,
Big
I
is
mean,
right.
I put on there that, you know, I think all of us, for the most part, I know John did, you know, we would build forts and jump off of it and have full faith that we weren't going to break anything. We weren't going to, you know, I know my brother did, and I know John crawled on top of the counters and the cabinets.
And I used to jump from the swing set until I jumped really, really high. And I was like, oh, I almost broke my leg. I probably shouldn't do that anymore.
I tried to get the swing to go around the bar, and I just fell backwards out of it.
Oh, so you were like Swinger Girl and Recess. Gotcha.
Yep. But again, they have full faith that this isn't going to hurt them. It's just going to be a fun thing. When they come to me as a teacher, and they have, you know, a scrape on their arm, they have full faith that I'm going to be able to just heal it and make it go away. And a lot of times me just sitting there and going, oh, I'm sorry, put Band-Aid on it, and they're fine 2 seconds later. You know, the tears that are coming down get fixed, and they have full faith that I'm going to be the one to do it.
Magic kiss. Kiss it.
Yeah, I mean...
I did magic powder. When a kid would come to me when I was nannying before I moved to Houston, and he hurt himself, I was like, hold on, I'd reach in my pocket. And he believed me.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, it's lint.
Magic lint of destiny found in my
But
pouch.
Yeah, I mean, it's that innocence, like you said, Liv, that that anything can happen, and that the people who are watching over them... Do you have a squeaky chair again?
Yeah, I have a squeaky chair.
I think it's the same chair as last week.
Squeaky chair.
But they just have the full faith that the people who are watching over them are going to take care of them, and that we're going to be able to fix everything. You know, when we do drills at school, we have kids that are afraid by the alarms going off and stuff, and they'll come and just hold my hand, and that fixes everything. And it's like...
Fixes everything for you, too. It's like, oh, little children just...
Well, no, because I'm making sure that they're doing everything they're supposed to be doing, and they're not running down the halls.
But it makes you happy when they come to you.
That. But what I'm saying is for them to just... They're terrified of the noises that are going off. The noises are still going off, but now they have an adult that they're holding the hand, and that's what God is asking us to do, Liv, going with the little faith that we're supposed to have. It's that faith to sit there and go, I'm going to reach up toward his hand and take his hand, and just have the faith that he's going to lead me where I need to be going.
Right.
And we struggle with that so much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, like, we also look in I don't remember which book of the Bible, Peter was like, God, are you there? The waves were, like, pounding, and Christ is, like, walking on the water.
That was in multiple.
Okay, cool. But, like, Christ was like, yes, I'm here, come out to me. And he stepped out on that water and was walking on water towards Christ.
He looked down
exactly.
and met his other friends.
And lost faith that God was going to keep him from those waves. Like, waves upon waves were crashing, but he's walking on water. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, Peter, you dumb. You're walking on water. Like, only God could do that. Clearly, he's there. Like, but he lost faith because everything around him was so terrifying. And what was the first thing Peter does when he sinks to the bottom of the water?
He reaches out.
He immediately reaches his hand up, and Christ pulls him out of the water. It's like, dude.
And the first thing is, oh, ye of little faith. That's the first thing. He doesn't sit there and say, you know, why did you take your eyes off me? I mean, he does, but that's not the first thing he says.
Yeah.
Oh, ye of little faith. Why did you doubt?
Yeah. It's just, why did you lose heart in what I was doing for you? Did you not see you were walking on water?
I mean, it just goes to show that, I mean, even if Jesus were literally physically here with us, it's very easy to take him for granted because of our sinful human nature. So, you know, of course, we're thinking, man, if I saw Jesus, like, physically, oh, man. It's like, well, they saw him for 3.5 years, and they took him for granted.
But would we believe that it actually is Jesus? If somebody came up to us and was like, yo, I'm Jesus.
I know.
Would we actually sit there in today's day and age and be like,
Jesus? But if we knew it was actually Jesus.
Divine.
Jesus.
Oh, that one.
Was it also
the one I've never seen, but y'all quoted so much that I know.
I'm going to church now. I'm in love with Jesus.
Jesus.
Jesus, you leave Juanito alone. What are you talking about? He throws a trash can at him.
Wasn't it also Peter that said, I don't believe that he has risen until I can physically
that was
reach
Thomas.
him? That was Thomas. I was doubting Thomas. But, like, Christ rose from the dead. People are like, yo, the tomb is empty. He's gone. And then he was like, well, I don't believe it. And even sitting in front of him, he was still doubtful, right?
Once he put his hands in...
But he needed that physical contact.
Yes, hippie wavy child.
So, part of the reason for that is because he was not part of the first group when Jesus appeared to them. So, of course, we've got the women, and then Jesus comes to everybody who was in the upper room, which included most of the disciples, except him, because he was off somewhere doing something. And so part of that was coming from the fact that he was very hurt that he didn't get to see Jesus with them. So, of course, he's going to be ornery and all, I'm not going to believe you until he comes in here and I can do this and I can do that.
But the other part of it, too, is the threat that was against them. They knew that if they went and they started talking against the Pharisees, they knew what was going to happen because it happened to Jesus. Mm-hmm. So for Thomas, yes, we kind of crown him as doubting Thomas and oh, how shame he didn't believe. If you know you're about to go die for something, typically we don't have that threat, especially here in America. We know that we can go and say pretty much whatever, and we're not going to get beheaded. I mean, it's just a fact of the matter.
Then you go to China.
Well, it depends on what you're saying.
The coronavirus will just kill you off in China.
Thomas, on the other hand, knew that if he was going to go and he was going to spread the word about Jesus raising, he wanted to be really sure that his friends weren't pranking him. I mean, that was a big thing for him. And that's...
So here on Pranked, got a Leon edition!
But that then goes back to, he didn't really have faith that they were being truthful. Yeah. You know, like he lost faith
and that he would come back.
Right.
And that Thomas would get to see him.
And even though there was prophecy after prophecy and promise after promise, you know, and I can imagine there are people, while Christ was walking the earth those 33 years... who probably were like, yeah, I don't know about this guy. Like, do you really think you're the Son of Man?
Well, part of that was because they thought he was going to come down as a glorified king and kill the Romans.
Yeah. Or free Israel from the Romans.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of why a lot of people didn't have the faith that he was the Son of Man, was because he came as a kid, you know, as a baby in a manger to a carpenter who was almost as low as you could get. And they thought through the prophecies and what the Pharisees had told them and what the Sadducees had told them, they thought he was going to be this king that came in freedom. And that's not, he did, just not the way they thought.
Right. Well, and I mean, that comes from the amount of time that was between Old and New Testament of silence. Yeah. Like, so many misconceptions were then able to, come around because it was like, well, he's still not here. Maybe he's going to do this. Well, then maybe he's going to be this way, or maybe he's going to be like this.
Pick and choose from selected prophets, and let's cobble together this image of what we want the Messiah to be.
He's going to be this huge deity coming out of the sky. I am Jesus. I don't know.
Like some sort of anime? Is that what you're thinking all of a
literally
sudden?
What my brain... Like
they
a
were
cartoon
waiting
character.
for Goku.
Okay, Journey to the West.
Here on Call to the Table, when we relate Christian aspects to anime. You had your hand raised. Did you ever get to say your point?
I was just going to say imaginary friends. Okay.
You were going to say what?
I was just going to make the point of imaginary friends with children.
Oh, yeah.
But
so many people are not going to get that reference. It's so sad.
Friends.
Also, I totally know about Recess. Okay. I know the cartoon. I just can't believe.
I just couldn't look at you.
Believe
no, I didn't know
that you were wanting to go upside down in a swing set. That was a terrifying concept.
I was also wanting to be a fighter jet pilot at the time, so.
True.
Yeah. Just preparing for your job.
Okay.
Which I'm too tall to do.
Yeah.
Caroline, what would you say? Having faith like a child.
I was thinking about the Sermon on the Mount and how Jesus specifically talks about living without fear of judgment or anxiety. Because, he talks about why are you worried about what you're going to eat or where you're going to sleep or what clothes you're going to wear? Doesn't God create the lilies of the valley? And these are arrayed more beautifully than Solomon in all of his glory. And if God can take care of the sparrows, can he not take care of you as well? So all of...
Reference to Liv Sparrow on her arm.
That would have been much more effective if we were filming this. But anyway.
That's why I have a sparrow on my arm.
I was waiting for it because I knew you were about to get to that. I was about to go like Olivia's arm.
So to me, having faith like a child means that you're not worrying. Because children who truly have that intact faith, they don't worry. They just believe and then they go along their merry way.
Mm-hmm. And if they do worry, it's not like how we worry.
Exactly.
They worry for like a second. And then it's an ADD moment.
Oh, butterfly!
Yep.
It's a bunny.
No. We're not doing that. We're not doing that on this. Okay.
He said that to me the other day.
But okay, I'm gonna interject and ask a question here.
As you always do.
There's one podcast where I don't. I liked that podcast actually. It was our women preaching one.
Yeah, you got on the hot seat that time.
I was on the hot seat.
Oh.
When do we start losing this faith like a child? Like, you're saying that they don't have a worry, and you're like, yeah, but then we worry. Like, and I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, but like, then anxiety creeps in, and all these lies creep in. When does that kind of, I guess not necessarily, when does it switch? When did that switch happen in y'all's life, in my life? When did we realize that our childlike faith was now being countered by cultural norm negativity?
I have my answer, but
I do too.
I can definitely say by 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before 9/11, I'm pretty sure it was, but I know by 9/11 it was there.
Yeah.
Because remember that very clear.
I mean, I think most of us do, too. Yeah. But yeah, I can see that being a moment.
Because, I mean, it wasn't long after that we had to worry about my dad losing his job because of the airline industry.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like, okay, war plus dad might be losing his job.
Yeah. I actually think my answer is probably going to be very similar, because that's when I realized there was real... Like, my dad's been a cop for as long as I can remember. He's retired now, but he was a cop my whole, like, adolescence, grade school, college life. And when 9/11 hit, and we had the airplanes hit the World Trade Center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Towers? Okay.
And then
I just want to make sure that I wasn't wrong. It's been so long. You know, we don't really talk about it anymore. We have Memorial Days for it.
Well, it's Patriot Day for remembrance.
There are still...
But, like, we have 9/11, the Remembering Day. Like, it's a day of...
That's Patriot Day, if I'm right.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But my dad always kept that evil from us. He never told us, like, the evil that he saw every single day as a cop. He always kept this image of, I pull people over and I give them tickets. So, like, that image was never really there of there's true evil in the world until 9/11. And that's where my faith kind of was, like, not shaken, but I definitely remember sitting down with my mom and saying, why would God let this happen? And she gave me the book A Case for Christ, because I was sitting there like, why would God allow such evil in the world? Like, I don't see him here. I don't see him in this. This doesn't make sense to me. And so she gave me that book, and I read that book, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I get it. But yeah, I would say the same, because my dad also then had to patrol, because the, where he used to work, there was a air traffic control center, and they were afraid that was going to be targeted, and so he had to work 12 to 24-hour shifts, making sure no one came and attacked that, because they thought that was the next target. After
that's right off the highway, too.
Yep.
But, I mean, and that's for all of us, middle to later elementary school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty early. I mean, I imagine... You would know this a little bit better, but even in 4th and 5th grade, students nowadays still have faith like a child, like because there isn't anything big that's happened. But I mean, imagine if we lived in the Middle East. Imagine if we lived in other places of the world where children as young as 5 were witnessing stuff like this.
Oh, yeah, I could imagine their sense of faith like a child is not there, because they probably haven't even had the opportunity to be a child.
I would agree with that. I think it's more of, I work now with littles, but I have worked in 4th and 5th in high school or whatever, and I feel like I'm going to do perspective here of when I feel like as a general rule of thumb that childlike faith breaks, and then I'll talk about mine specifically. I feel like it's when, for any child, when there is a major event that they are able to, like a negative event that they are able to fully comprehend. There is a kid right now in one of my classes whose father has been diagnosed with cancer. She came and she shared it like it was, I got a bike today, or, she was just very, like, matter of fact of, you know, it's not her dad, it's her stepdad, but my stepdad has cancer and he might die. And she talked about it without there being this heavy emotion because I don't think she understands it.
No.
But a fourth grader would. And so I think for any time where a negative thing happens and they're able to fully comprehend all scenarios of what could happen and what the reality of that is, I feel like that's where, and that may happen in first grade, that may happen in second grade, that may happen in kindergarten, that may happen, you know, whenever. But that's where I feel like the faith starts to break down.
Slowly, one thing at a time.
Right.
And I know this is a completely different topic for a different day, but do you imagine this has something to do with the Age of Atonement?
Yes, but we would have to talk about that later.
I'm confused, but we'll talk about that later.
For me personally, I think where my faith kind of started to break down, and I can't give you a specific, like, age, but because I'm a little, y'all have seen, our listeners have seen pictures of me. I'm heavier set. I'm not skinny. I'm not, you know, whatever. And so I was bullied a lot in school for being heavier set and for being kind of the odd one out. It's okay.
I knew you were bullied, but I didn't know
They're
exactly
jerks.
why.
See, I was the type of person who I'd probably go beat him up.
See, I was personally got bullied for being tall, and then the kid would try to wreck my tricycle, and I'd wreck his tricycle.
I tried to make sure that I literally didn't exist, so nothing happened.
Yeah. So I got teased,
I
and
always spoke up.
I got teased, and I never got like beat up or anything, but it was just like a day-to-day, you know, kind of the whispers. And
you also went to a private Christian
Yes.
school with a very small amount of people.
Yes,
So
it was
very difficult.
very hard to stay out of the drama. If you weren't in the drama, you were in the drama. I mean, it's just how it was.
You weren't in the drama, you were the drama.
When I would come home and be crying about why this keeps happening and I don't want to go back to school, or I would be, you know, I would get stomach aches from which I didn't realize until later. It wasn't anxiety. It was just I would get stomach aches and not want to go to school. And as soon as I found out I didn't have to go to school, like, I'd be fine. And then I would get told that I was making it up, which I was,
That's
but not.
psychosomatic, though.
Yeah, it was just I didn't want to go to school. So that, I think, for me is where my faith was tested and I didn't handle it the best. And then on top of that, having, you know, I have an older brother who I love dearly, but he had stuff, you know, growing up. He struggled with anxiety and stuff too. And so having to see him cope with that and wonder why my older brother, who I looked up to and I idolized and, you know, whatever, had to go through all this stuff, I think that's where I got, you know, tested. So what about you, darling?
I feel like two places. So, like, right when I first started school, suddenly I wasn't literally by myself at home with nobody around but my grandmother and my dog. There were rules that if you didn't obey them, you got swiftly punished, and that absolutely terrified me. And so I tried to be the perfect child because I was having trouble making friends, and it felt like the only way I could have approval was if I was the perfect child. And so that caused me a lot of anxiety, particularly once grades started cropping up. It's like, I have to be perfect now or else, like, I can't have any fun, you know, like, what is all of this? And then, of course, when the divorce happened, when I was, well, not the divorce, but the separation first happened when I was in 5th grade, I became an incredibly angry and bitter person, but I made sure nobody saw that. Nobody saw that at all. I was still the perfect child. Nobody would know any different. And apparently that is a classic symptom of that age group when a separation or divorce happens. So, but yeah, that was definitely it for me.
Yeah.
So, we got intense there. We'll take a break, and we're going to go to shout-outs and group texts with Olivia.
Hey everyone, it's Caroline, here to tell you about this month's ministry highlight. This month, I want to tell you about Gateway Center in Atlanta. Gateway's goal is to connect people experiencing homelessness with the support necessary to become self-sufficient and find a permanent home. Gateway Center's programs are designed to address the underlying barriers that prevent individuals and families from transitioning out of homelessness, such as unemployment, behavioral health, housing affordability, and/or medical conditions. They provide a trauma-informed and a client-centered environment where individuals can receive the tools they need to end their homelessness and achieve self-sufficiency. To ensure the alignment of services, Gateway Center has focused their efforts into providing housing placement and stability, maintaining health and wellness, promoting family and community engagement, providing job skill training and job placement, and offering education opportunities. If you want more information or would like to learn how to volunteer, please go to www.gatewayctr.org. That's all for me now. Bye.
And we're going to go to shout-outs and group texts with Olivia.
Yeah. So, as you saw on our social media, I don't know why I'm saying things like this.
Because
coffee makes you emphasize things weirdly.
Love coffee. We did, the past couple weeks, we've done 2 truths and a lie right before recording this. And the very first 2 truths and a lie was with mine. And I said in the thing, if you were the first person to get it right, you get a shout out for one of our episodes throughout March. So this is our first one.
You want to say what the lie was for those who may not have seen it?
Yes, hold on, let me pull it up.
I know what it is.
I don't remember what I put for myself.
I know what your lie was. I can't remember what you put on the other 2.
That sounds like Amazing Grace. I have to go into Amazing Grace. Yeah, so my 2 truths and a lie was, if I could only... Wow, I picked ones. If I could only drink 2 drinks for the rest of my life, it would be coffee and water, in that order. Nerd for days, love nerd culture, and Batman is the best. And the picture was of the Batmobile at Chick-fil-A corporate.
Beast.
Because it's so awesome. And then I post that I really dislike the beach, and that was my lie. And Madison Tatum was the one who got it right. She got it right within like minutes. So yeah, here's your shout out, Madison Tatum. That is her at Madison Tatum. Mm-hmm. Thanks for playing our 2 truths and a lie for the first episode.
Yay!
Yeah, and now we have group text. I love group text. It's like my favorite. So the first one is anonymous. Because we do give the option, if you want to ask us questions but don't want us to tag you in it, we do anonymous ones. Mm-hmm. You just have to specify that they're anonymous, because if you don't, I'm going to assume you're okay with me putting your name out there. Mm-hmm. But our first one comes from Anonymous.
Anonymous.
I was going to say Anonymouse.
Speaking of mouse.
No.
Pepe! How can we weed out the lies we are told about having a childlike faith in comparison to a holy child?
And what does that mean?
I have a really, ranty answer for this one.
Go on it.
So, the misconception of holy children and the idea of being a holy child is not biblical. Loved and made in God's image as who we are. I think the way I read the question was, this person is asking, when your faith, the childlike faith you have, is being in question because you are not the quote-unquote holy child, how do you combat those lies? Because there's no holy child.
There's one.
Except Christ himself was the holiest of holy children and only holy child.
You said a lot of O words just now.
Just for you.
Holy.
I am Dr. Seuss. I'm just kidding. And I think recognizing the fact that we are not holy children. We are holy in the eyes of God. He loves us and made us in his image, but we will never be the holy child that Christ was. Mm-hmm. Having the faith that God is going to take care of those lies and the people spreading those lies and making, the only way I can really think about it is karma kind of play out into that. Having that faith is just as powerful as being like, in Jesus' name, I reject those lies. Like, that's having faith. And so that's where I think the question was kind of coming from, was this idea of being told, you are not a holy child, so how do you have faith? Well, you have faith. If you have faith, we're all sinners. We're all people. We're going to mess up. I'm not going to be perfect. Anonymous, you're not going to be perfect. Just have that mustard seed size faith. Mic drop.
I took it as kind of going off of what you said. I feel like when we sit there and we deem somebody a holy child, it's sitting there almost like how we expect a pastor's kid to be that person that you look up to and they emit Christ-likeness.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, where you can sit there and you can point to them and go, I really see Christ in that person. Just because somebody to somebody else emits that does not mean that they have faith. I feel like for all four of us, I feel like when we go and we are out in the community, I feel like we all strive to be Christ-like in our daily interactions, but all four of us have struggled with having that faith. I don't think that one goes with the other. I think that if you have faith, yes, that may show in your confidence as you are interacting with other people. But if you are interacting with other people and you are perceived as a Christ-like person, that does not mean that you have that faith like a mustard seed.
Yeah.
You can be sitting there and having the biggest anxiety attack and they may not know.
Yeah.
So that's how I took it is don't, it's not necessarily lies we're told, it's more of lies that are perceived.
Yeah.
We perceive things as them being that Christ-like person or that holy person that you just are sitting there going, man, they've got it together. They just emit, Christ's love, but you don't know what they're going through on a day-to-day basis.
You don't know the skeletons in their closet.
Yeah.
I forgot I had one more point.
Go for it.
To the anonymous person, remember you are only responsible for your splinter, not their plank.
Amen.
Because if they're sitting there saying that, and if I'm assuming that this person is asking in the sense of experience. If they're sitting there saying you're not holy enough, you're not a holy enough child to have faith like a child, they need to look at their plank.
Yep.
Take it out.
Yep. I agree.
Be responsible for your splinter.
It'd be great if they looked at different people in the Bible too. I mean,
thank you.
I'm even going back to Old Testament on this. Look at David.
Yeah.
Good work, my good and faithful servant. What all did he do that was horrible?
Yeah.
His list was long.
There's a reason why he wasn't able to build the temple.
You are a man of blood.
Do you have anything to add, Caroline?
Not really, because I had no idea what to do with this one. I was like, holy child?
Okay.
See,
Jesus? I was going off. About.
I wasn't sure with the holy child part, but I thought there were like lies about what childlike faith turning you into a holy child. And I was like, no, because you got to look at the fruits of the Spirit, the fruits that people produce.
Yeah.
You're going to know if somebody is more of the Spirit than of flesh based off their fruits. I'm not going to sit here and say you're not a believer based off your fruits because I don't know where you are in your walk. You could be a brand new believer and not have many of the fruits.
Right.
But if you have many of the fruits, I know you are at least a little ways along your walk with God.
Right.
But that's how I took it because I didn't exactly understand that question. But
y'all said good things. I pass.
So our second group text is also anonymous. What does it look like? And it's very similar off of the first anonymous question, which I thought was really interesting. What does it look like to pair faith like a child with holy truth? And I, again, took this in the sense of holy truth being biblical truth.
Right.
That's kind of the perception I went towards. And how do you have faith, how do you compare and pair up faith like a child and biblical truth? Well, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You have faith and you have biblical truth or holy truth. They're going to interweave themselves, especially when it's true. If it's not true, you're going to notice that those two don't actually weave together seamlessly. It's one of the few things that we, and this is what I believe, that we as Christians and humans can actually see perfection in, is if our faith is coinciding with biblical standing, it's going to perfectly fit together. We're going to see the Holy Spirit lead us forward in faith, not stumble. I mean, we're gonna stumble, don't get me wrong, and we're gonna mess it all up because we're gonna lose faith. We're gonna forget about that.
We still have a fleshly body.
Exactly, but it's that idea of perfect pairing.
And I actually have an example of this.
Go for it.
Share.
With Moses getting the Israelites out of Egypt, it talks in there about how God hardens Pharaoh's heart.
Yes.
And this is something that me and Jordan were struggling with for a while, and eventually a couple weeks ago, actually. I was
metal. I don't want to be like diggy 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 diggy.
Anyways,
really random. And I can talk about this too, but you go ahead.
I was listening to somebody I do listen to. He's a political person, but he's an Orthodox Jew. And they were specifically talking about that in their synagogue the week before, and he brought it up.
Neat.
And he's like, this hardening his heart is not making it to where he wanted to say no. It was giving him the resolve to give an answer.
Mm-hmm.
If a soldier hardens their heart in battle, it gives them the resolve to go into battle. If you harden your heart going into an activity, it's giving you the resolve to go and do it. It gives you the backbone to actually stand up.
So he's explaining the word choice there?
The word choice, yes.
As specifically a Jewish way of saying creating resolve.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Caroline's mind was blown.
I like cultural context because it makes it so much easier to understand.
Because if you sit here and go, God made him say that he wasn't going to release the Israelites, so that God can then destroy Egypt,
exactly,
and
that's
bring
not
his
in
glory.
God's
That's not a gracious and caring God.
Exactly.
But at the same time, that's exactly what it says, and you're like, that doesn't make sense.
It's the language choice, and that makes sense to me. The way I took it, and this is something that I have heard, and it makes a lot of sense. God is like the sun. We have ice and we have clay. God wants us to be like ice in that he's able to melt us and make us into whatever he wants us to be. Pharaoh was like clay in that the sun hardened him. So it's the same person, but people react differently to him based on the substance that they have chosen to be made of, if you want to put it that way. Mm-hmm. So God didn't like, all right, I'm going to make Pharaoh be evil. No, God it just happened that way because of Pharaoh's character that already existed.
But yeah, I mean, and as I was saying, the mesh of him hardening his heart and us and how we think of hardening a heart wasn't meshing up.
Right.
But when I heard that, I was like, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm
a bypass like Caroline did because y'all said everything.
Oh, so. That is group text.
And that is group text.
Yeah, that was essentially what I was gonna Liv. You stole what I was gonna say.
Sorry.
That hey, they hold each other up. It's easier to have faith if you have something to hold on to that you know is absolutely true.
Right, so, and I mean like biblical truth or holy truth, if you want to go by the question itself, is that physical, tangible realness that we have. Mm-hmm. It's one of the few things that you can go buy a Bible, read it, experience it, and it's tangible. Like, there are so many times where I've read the Bible and I'm like, I needed this today. Like, this goes exactly with what I needed. It's like food. It's like I needed to eat. Here it is. And that kind of just boosts up your faith a little bit more.
Going off of that, that's something I've been going through the past couple of weeks. I had a major, not meltdown, but a major tearing down of God sitting there and really showing me that I had confused faith and belief. That I had sat there and I believed in him, but that was about as far as it went. That when it actually came to things coming up in my life that hit personally, for example, John and I, due to some stuff over the holidays, and it wasn't just holiday like shopping, it was other stuff that happened. Our financials, we haven't had a whole lot of extra money, and we've had to use some of our savings, and that for me is always where it hits hard because I'm such an organizer, as y'all know. And so I have to make sure everything is balanced and we have enough in certain places. And when I sit there and I look at our money organizer and there's nothing in it, that's an issue for me. And so it wasn't family, it wasn't friends, it was something that directly hit me and something that I am a little OCD about. And I wasn't handling it well, and I just had to sit there and I stressed John out, and I didn't mean to. But I just was sitting on the couch and the lights were off, and I was just like, me and God have issues right now. Because I didn't understand. I didn't understand why I was so stressed about it. I was like, I know God's there. I know he'll take care of us, but that faith wasn't there. It was, I knew it in my head, but like my heart was not lining up with my head. But so that was something that the Rock Harbor series, the Rooted series, was one of those instances where I needed it.
Yeah.
And I just needed to know who God was. That was the only thing. And I was searching podcasts, and I was searching, everywhere that I could to find who was God. And I found this series, Rooted, at Rock Harbor Church. And I've been listening to it every week now. And every week it hits something that I need right then. So, yeah, it's definitely, and it was something in one of the sermons that I heard yesterday. It was talking about how with God, there's no such thing as coincidence. It's God coincidence. Yeah. So,
God incidents.
God incidents.
God
and I was just like,
God incidents.
That's awesome. So, yeah, I think with holy truth, you do have to have faith that what you're reading is the truth. And is not made up, and is not, whatever. Did you have fun kicking him?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was group text this week.
Woohoo!
We like our questions. Keep bringing them on.
I love group text.
So, going to our last point, one of the things that Liv, as our social media person, brought to my attention was that you guys, the listeners, like to hear more about us and more about what we go through and stuff. So, for our last point, I wanted to kind of go around the circle and talk about an experience where we have been challenged to have that childlike faith in something that God was doing. And did you have it or didn't you have it? And what was the result? So I don't know who wants to start, if Liv wants to start.
I have a lot. But one of the ones that, when I read the question, the first one to pop in my brain was literally moving to Houston. Mm-hmm. Was having that childlike faith of, I had $700 to my name. That was it. Mm-hmm. And I moved halfway across the country. I needed to pay rent. I needed to get groceries. And I wasn't working for a month. And I was like, this $700 has to get me rent, groceries, and through the month. And it was terrifying. But because I had faith, because I could have been like, God, no, I need to wait another month, save money, and then I can move. But he was like, no, you're going now. Had I not gone then, I wouldn't have gotten a job within the first 3 days of being in Houston. Mm-hmm. And this is just not boasting, but boasting on the Lord of because I had faith and was faithful to what God was asking me to do, there were rewards that followed through. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I got a job within 3 days at the job that I stayed with for the whole 4 years I was in Houston. I got another job, which was kind of far, but they gave me a $700 signing bonus. So that $700 that needed to go directly to rent and things like that, I was then able to recover. My car broke down 3 weeks into it, dead. He provided a new car with the finances to do so, within 3 weeks. And all of those jobs that I had just gotten, I started the week after I moved back. Mm-hmm. So, I could have easily sat back and be like, no, God, because finances are, my weak spot. It's I am OCD about my finances. If I drop below a certain number and I have to dip out of my savings, I flip out. I'm like, no. This is here, this is here, this goes here, this goes here. We don't go outside this realm. Yep. So at that point, it was like, God, I need to wait another month. I can still work for one more month here, not have to pay rent, not have to do this. He was like, nope, go. Because I did it. I wouldn't have got those benefits. I wouldn't have been able to start 2 of those jobs right away and make the money, and then didn't have to worry about how long I could stretch that $700 out. Mm. But that was my example. But I have a lot of them. I act like a kid. So.
Yes, you do.
But that's come from a lot of growing up.
Yeah.
Growing up's overrated.
Well, I matured and realized having faith like a child and having that childlike wonder helps me connect with my students and helps me create a safe space for them to be like, oh, this adult gets me, and having trying to channel that faith that they may have keeps me young.
And because of that, you will stay young forever.
Yeah, I will.
Forever young.
Forever young. Do you know that song?
No, actually.
Yes,
I know
he does. He does. He's heard it, but he just doesn't know who sings it or anything.
Okay, Jen, your turn before she pops a nerve.
Skip over me for now because I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Oh.
I'm gonna go to you, Caroline.
Why?
Because I want to be last. There's nothing bad. I just want to be last. That's all.
Is it because yours is kind of long?
No.
She just wants to be last.
She wants to be the caboose.
I do.
I
Because,
want to
like, her
be...
hair...
What's the front of the
caboose?
What's the front of the train?
The engine?
Yeah, I like being the engine.
Liv, you are the engine.
What's the front of the train?
And I'm the coal car.
I don't know.
I'm just thinking about just random boxes and somehow they just move magically.
Trains are so boring and they make me late for work, especially where I work.
My water.
That happens to me too sometimes. You know, you could pick it up like a civilized person.
It does this.
And that's
Microphone. He has to edit that, or you do. I don't know who's
No,
editing.
that's me. But I'm going to keep that in just because I think that's going to be funny.
Can that please be one of my sound bites?
I don't know. There's quite a bit of material to work
What's
with.
the front of the train?
See, and then I'm right behind the engine.
Why do
That's
I
a coal
feel
car.
like
I just
that's...
keep giving her fuel to burn.
Exactly.
Yeah, see, that's a new sound effect for us. It's like, group text!
It's like a triangle
Welcome
for
to
dinner.
Call to the Table. My name's Olivia, and I'm mentally insane.
If you haven't figured that out yet, I feel pity for you.
Ooh, this is comfortable.
Well, sit like that then.
But I'm so far away from the microphone.
You just have
Oh
to-
dear, you're going to have to talk louder. Is that a problem?
Nah.
When John's editing this part, I'm going to walk by and his headphones are just going to be pulled out like this.
No, this is where I take it and make the sound.
John, this is for you. Do not talk sensual into the microphone.
No.
Okay, Caroline, we're off topic.
So, I was trying to think because I don't know if I've been really good with having childlike faith at all. Because most of the time I worry and plan and worry and plan. And because I can't do anything about the plans, they sit there and make me worry even more. And college was a really horrible time for that in particular. There was an instance. This was a really painful instance too. My first, I don't want to call it my first real job, but my first real job in education was when I was a reader for my art history teacher, who I freaking adored. I absolutely loved her to death. She was such a sweet person, so knowledgeable, so caring, just an absolute angel. And I wanted to work with her, and it's like, great, I can work with my favorite teacher. I'm doing English stuff. This is so fun. And I got super perfectionistic about the job just because it's like, I'm coming at it from an English perspective, and she's coming at it from we have like a billion papers to grade. I just want to get these out. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, I have children who are, I don't say students, I say children, because their parents will pitch a fit if they get like less than a C. So she's like, I kind of have to, on some things.
Fail them.
See, that's what I wanted to do, but it's the whole private Christian school thing again, and all the politics, which I thought was stupid, but I was getting so perfectionistic and so anxiety about it that I had neglected some of my duties because I was just so, like, worked up in a ball of I have no idea what to do in this situation. I didn't feel like I could talk to her about it. She was also going through a whole lot of crap because not only was she teaching several classes, but she was part-timing at grad school for illustration, so she was just like, pew! And we kind of had a falling out, and I had probably one of my first legit panic attacks. I didn't realize it was a panic attack, but that's essentially what it was. Mm-hmm. And I, in my mania, was like, God, I need to get this sorted before I leave for college. I don't want us to have leave college, because I was a senior. It's like, please, I need to be able to come back next semester. I don't want this to somehow ruin my reputation and make me an evil person. You know the way your mind works when you're kind of half crazed.
Oh, yeah, you go to all worst case scenario.
You're half crazed. You're low on sleep. I was in a terrible codependent relationship with my roommate. I was just in a very, very bad way. Just because it's like I never left home before. I was kind of insane because I never left home before and I had no idea what to do. I've never been a truly independent person. I'm learning to be an independent person. College was a nightmare. So anyway, it's one of my greatest regrets that college really was more of a hassle for me because I didn't know how to handle myself. And But part of me is like, well, there's not much I personally could have done. I guess I could have gone to camp. I guess I could have done this. I guess I could have done that. But a lot of stuff kept me at home. I had a sick grandmother. I had a family that couldn't let me go out a whole lot to other things because they were working, or, you know, just all sorts of things where, yes, I was a very sedentary homebody person just because of the way my life was.
And then you met me.
Yeah. No, trust me, you were a gigantic blessing. All of you were a gigantic blessing. But anyway, I've given a whole lot of background, but essentially where the faith bit comes in is I wanted to it's like I really, really want us to be able to reconcile or at least come to an understanding before I have to leave for Christmas break. And on the way home from college, she called me and we kind of reconciled, and that's exactly what I had prayed for. And I had to have faith that that would happen. And it did.
Good job.
And I'm very happy now because, was it the...
Don't touch my chair!
I think it was at the funeral of one of my favorite professors who had cancer. When I came back years later, I say years later like it was 20 years later. Or whatever. I know. No, more like maybe 4 years later. Anyway. And I was able to talk to my professor, and I told her, because I had by that time gotten... It's like my mind finally cleared of a whole lot of stuff, and I was able to see clearly, and it's like, look, I really am sorry. I had no idea what to do in this situation. I didn't want to let you down. All this other stuff was happening to me. I'm so sorry. I know better now. I was so worried that you hated me for a while, and we both cried and hugged each other, and it was beautiful. Aww. And so I was very, very happy that we were able to get that taken care of, because relationships with... I've always wanted to have good relationships with my teachers just because they've been parental figures, I guess, for me. You know, extra ones. They were who I looked up the most to in school, and if I had a good one, my school year was guaranteed to be awesome. And there were just some professors that I absolutely adored and I wanted to have a good relationship with, and I'm glad I was able to mend that one with her. But I had to have faith that it would happen, even though it was very difficult to have faith when I was literally in a half-crazed mindset. But it happened. And one tiny little thing, well, actually no, two tiny little stories. One, I didn't necessarily even have to start having faith for this to happen, because when my laptop that had gotten me through college for 4 years died, during that summer, it's like, alright, I ran you ragged, didn't I, old pal? So as we lowered it into its grave, I called my roommate, who I have a much, much better, more healthy relationship with now. And she said, you know what's crazy? I have a random Mac that was given to me by my rich, spoiled cousin. Do you want it? Because I didn't know what to do with it, and I feel like God gave it to me to give it to you. Aww. And so that's how I got my second computer, which died, I want to say, a year ago. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's why I have this thinner guy now. But to me, that was just a can I brag on God for a second moment.
I have one for you if you don't have one.
But I say the only thing I could think of actually relates to the finances and stuff like that. I have the faith that it's going to be okay eventually. Even if that means at some point we're going to be living underneath a bridge in a cardboard box. But
no, don't say that. That's going to freak me out.
You're not going to do that.
I don't believe
we
we
get
are.
that,
but...
though. I believe all people within our generation go through that struggle as well.
But I mean
yeah.
I don't stress over it. Yes, I'm a very analytical person. I do plan everything out as much as I can. But at the same time, I'm also a go-with-the-flow type person. Yes, which is really weird mix. I know.
That is really weird, but
you're an
interesting.
enigma.
I say, ask her, it really makes her angry at me a lot of times.
Because I want to have it all planned out. Once it's planned out, we actually get there, I'm fine.
It's like, I'm going to analyze this. But we're good.
No, John analyzes from the sense of when are we getting there, when are we leaving, and what are we doing while we're there. Then he's fine. I'm the one that sits there and is like, okay, what time are we leaving? What time are we arriving? What time are we going to go to this place? What specifically are we going to do at this place? What time are we eating lunch? What time are we leaving that place? What time are we checking out?
This is why you're so stressed on vacation.
Home? Yes, because this is what runs through my mind. John just wants to know, when are we getting there? When are we going to leave? And what is the general plan for while we're there? He has 3 things. 3 things. I have like 20.
Me. When do we leave? When do we eat next?
Yeah.
And where am I sleeping? You have 3 things.
I don't care. I'll sleep on the floor as long as there's food.
But that's what I'm saying.
But, like,
where am I sleeping? Just where?
yeah.
Am I sleeping on the floor? Cool, fine.
I don't even
like,
care
when
about
we
that.
were in Florida, when we got there, we went to the grocery store. What was the first thing that came out of our mouth? Can we get food? And where do we go? Whataburger.
And then what do we do right after we go to Whataburger?
Grocery shop.
No, you forgot one thing.
We went to Krispy Kreme.
Because the hot sign turned on.
And we ate more food. Oh, man. And then we went to the grocery store.
And
we went
these
back
2 were
and got
left
more
out
food.
of that.
I was so mad.
It was you, me, and my younger brother.
It was
You didn't bring me back
awesome.
Whataburger.
I brought you back some fries.
No, you didn't. You
didn't.
brought me
We ate
back.
them all.
You ate them all. You brought me back like 4
Donuts.
mildly cool, like
Fries.
Krispy Kreme donuts, and that was it.
Because we ate the rest of
Gotta,
them.
gotta feed her like a baby bird now. Open up, here your fries. Ah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, because we ate, like, a lot of donuts. And then we went to the grocery store.
There was 4 left, and they weren't
How
even
many
hot.
did we get?
We got a full dozen. Between the 3 of us.
We ate most of
The
them.
only reason I remember there
After
were 4.
Whataburger.
The only reason I remember there were 4 was because when you came back and there was only 4 left, and I was like, "You brought what the heck?" And you were like, "Well, there's 2 for each for you and Caroline, and that's it." I'm like, "How many did y'all have? Like 5, 3 each?" Like you
No,
suck.
it was 3 each, and one of
Yeah.
us had 2.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one. I think Josh had 2.
Can't you tell
'Cause I
how
think
much
we
my
both had
husband loves
3.
me?
We both also ate the
She's
big,
married to a
big meal
bottomless
of
pit, y'all.
Whataburger.
Mm-hmm.
I could put food away.
Who will go
I
to
know you
McDonald's
can.
after they've already eaten at a fancy restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
we will.
No, the time that I was thinking about with you was leaving McDonald's to go to your.
There was a lot of things that was pushing me out of there. It wasn't so much just a faith.
But you were
step.
taking a pay cut. I mean, that was a big thing for you.
25 cents an hour, yes.
I'm
What
just
about
saying.
the current?
That's $1 every
Situation.
4 hours, Sean.
Are we going to talk about the current situation?
Yeah, you having to go back
Yeah,
to your other job.
having to go back to where I was trying to get out of.
Yeah, that's taking a lot of faith for both of us that's going to turn out.
But he's going to school to
Get out of
his
that, yeah.
Yeah.
welding degree.
Yeah, I'm actually going to get a welding diploma. There are no welding degrees.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Whatever.
Just need a diploma.
Diploma. Mine was the podcast. This was a huge. This was
yeah.
a huge faith thing because I had been feeling like God was calling me to do something where I was speaking, and I couldn't figure out an outlet. And we were doing a yard sale at my house, and Caroline came down to hang out with me, and I was kind of not venting to her, but just kind of talking. Well, it was just more of like, I need your advice. I was coming to you as an advice thing of I don't know where to go with this. And Caroline said, well, why don't you and John do a podcast? And I said, because if we do a podcast, it's just gonna be John just sits there and doesn't say anything.
I doubt that wholeheartedly.
When it's just us two,
You're quiet?
he's quiet. He doesn't, because there's nobody to push him.
I don't have anybody to bounce off of.
Oh.
I'm an extrovert. I need people.
Yeah.
One person is not people.
But you bounce off of me most consistent.
Well, that's because you and me are both extroverts.
This is true. Okay, continue.
So,
When I'm trying to bounce off an introvert, that doesn't work too well.
So
She
I
absorbs your energy.
I do.
and later goes, blah!
Should see me last night. We were playing Wii golf, and I got a little crazy.
I have plus 20 now.
Meanwhile,
That's bad.
I used a driver on the putting range.
she should have been using a wedge because she was
She
just
was in the
outside
rough.
the green.
There's your
She's
example
rough.
of faith. This driver will put it to the hole. I
And it-
believe that.
And it went.
Lack of faith.
It shot like a bullet. It was great.
Well, I mean, the thing is, she wasn't on the green because it won't let you use anything besides the putter on the green. She was literally like 3 inches
Right
away
outside
from the
of it.
green.
I was like, driver. And
Out
it
of bounds.
it shot too.
Again.
It was great. But Caroline sat there and she was like, well, I'll do it with you. And I said, well, if we're going to do the 3 of us, I want to get Liv involved. And so
That's how it happened.
Yep. And so I said, well, let me pray on it. And it was a couple weeks. And then I messaged in a group text. I messaged Liv and I said, we have this idea and we want to see if you're all for it. And you had been thinking, Liv, about doing a podcast or something like that with a group of friends at the time. And it just was, it's so perfectly, this is, when we first started, I said, I think at one of our first meetings, I said, I know that this is God-led because everything is lining up so perfectly. And so far, every time we've had to record, there's been no issues. Us doing the topics, there's been no issues. There's been nothing that has come up and we haven't been able to handle it. And we've been able to record without getting into arguments, which is great. All of our communication has gotten better.
Look out for one day we're gonna have a knockdown, drag out fight. And it'll be on the video one.
Let's
too.
go.
It's going to be from me and Olivia. You know it's going to happen like that.
We don't argue, though. We just choose to argue.
So that was where I had to have the faith that what God was leading me to do. Oh, gosh.
No. This
Actually,
is Mortal Kombat.
Mom said no.
I'm not your mother!
No, that was me.
No, there's a podcast. I can't remember which episode where Caroline is like, and I'm like the mom of the group and stuff like that. And you were like, well, I usually do. I was like, both of y'all.
No.
Yep.
I don't remember what I said, but y'all were the one who called me mom.
No, you said something about it, and then you said yes, mother, and you're like, I'm not your mother. You're like, well, you just said you were.
Yep.
Yes.
So,
the oldest is
and
mom.
I had an actual Peter moment because when after the first few episodes came out, we had such high views because that was before we were on Spotify and before we were on iTunes.
And it was all concentrated in one place.
It was all concentrated
out.
Right. It was all concentrated on YouTube. And then when we opened up to the other platforms, I was continuously looking at the YouTube views, and they were like getting less and less and less and less.
Right.
And so I had a Peter moment where I like stopped having faith that it was going to where God needed it to go. And
but then you had to go look at the other.
No, even then, because there was like the when we first put it on Spotify, because Anchor, where we post it, shows me like where everything's being played and how many plays we have.
Oh, that's nice.
And like when we first posted it, there was like 2 views, and I was like,
we went from having like 40 to like 5.
Yeah, and so it was me having to sit there and kind of calm myself down and be like, it's okay. And I remember sitting there and having that moment of clarity of I took my eyes off of what it was supposed to be. And when we started, we prayed at that very first meeting. We prayed that this would reach just somebody.
Whoever it
needed to reach. And I had a realization yesterday. I was going around and we had the windows open because it was so pretty. And I had this moment of clarity and I was just like, it's reached me. Like, it's doing this has caused me and forced me to look into things that I wouldn't do like in-depth studies on.
Right.
And so we prayed that it would reach whoever it needed to reach, and it reached me. So
that's dope.
So God did it. But we've definitely reached more than just me. But that was a moment for me. It was just like God sat there and was like, I reached somebody. Yeah. That's what you prayed for. So yeah.
All right.
Is that everybody?
I believe.
All right, John. Lead us out in your radio voice.
No.
Fine, I'll talk like this now. Thank you for joining us with Call to the Table. We really appreciated you listening to this episode. If you need to get in contact with us for a prayer request, for ideas, suggestions for future episodes, comments, concerns.
Emotional outbursts.
Smart aleck remarks.
I had a student say that, and I love it.
Please get in contact with us at Call to the Table Pod at Facebook and Instagram, or calltoThetable@gmail.com.
No. You have to go .com.
No, he always does it, so Liv will
See.
do it because Liv interrupts him.
But I refuse to do it now.
I know.
.com. You happy now?
Yes, I am. And join us next week as we discussing the different love languages.
Why did you look at me for that?
I don't know.
Why you gotta creep me out all the time?
Because you always are the one that does something.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at you because I'm on guard against you. I don't worry so much about them.
I'm not gonna physically hurt you.
I'm not saying you're going to.
Except I did kick
do.
you
I was going to say you
Hurt
kicked
my
him
mind.
earlier. All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'm still not gonna hit you. Bye.